Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sifat, and if you have an interest around what the future of mobility looks like, then do consider subscribing as we explore various exciting topics each week on that. In 5 minutes EV news, I bring you the most important news from the industry in a very digestible, fun way in 5 minutes. Starting off with India. India is a very interesting market because, as they say, if your back is turned against the wall and you've got nothing else to do, that's when you come up with the most innovative things. And cannot be more true for India. They have a very difficult infrastructure to work with, a grid that is often very unreliable, and one that cannot sustain huge amounts of electric cars. So what does that lead to? Very innovative companies like IndianOil. This week, IndianOil was able to create a zero-emission electric mobility technology. Now, what that means is that they have upgraded their retail stations across the country with solar panels, and for the first time have had a successful pilot where they managed to actually connect these cars to the solar panels and recharge directly through solar power. The benefits of this pilot is of course huge, because what that means is that they can now scale it across their retail network and ensure that electric cars around the country have access to charging stations without the need to actually upgrade or put extra pressure on the grid. From India to now Europe, where challenges are somewhat different. A recent study by EVBox shows that 57% of people would pay more for fast charging. Now, what's fast charging? Clearly, you can charge your car if you have an electric car at home, and that takes about 6 to 8 hours. But if you go to a retail station, like a fuel station, or say a supermarket with rapid charging, that can be done with significantly more power and can get your car charged in about 20 to 30 minutes. Still quite long, but of course drastically quicker. And the fact that 57% of people would actually pay more for that service is actually understandable when you look at how much it costs to charge your car at the moment. If you think about refueling your car, on average, data shows that you can get that done in about 4.5 minutes. So getting in, putting the fuel in and going out and paying. Versus, as I mentioned, 20 to 30 minutes in retail stations. And of course, fuel costs more than electric charging. So therefore, it's very common, very understandable behavior that we'll be willing to pay more for a faster experience. So clearly, rapid charging can increase the uptake of electric cars in the short run. Because, like me, for example, I don't have a driveway, so I can't charge my car at home. So I'm dependent on actually going on the go and charging at rapid stations. And clearly, I can't spend 6 hours charging at slow chargers on the go. And so that brings me then to the UK, where Trojan Energy, a startup, has just secured government funding to put up 200 on-street smart subsurface charging stations. And looking at the images, it looks very exciting. It's going to be put up in Brent and Camden, actually not very far from where I live. And essentially what it is you park up your car and you pull these chargers up from the ground, so otherwise you won't be able to see it, and simply plug in your car. So clearly, one way to increase uptake of electric cars is to have more charging stations and better charging stations. But what about the cars themselves? That brings me to my next piece of news. There's the race to the most efficient mass market EVs carries on. In particular, two companies caught my eye this week. The first one of those is Aptera, who recently gained $500,000 in crowdfunding. What that allows them to do is now actually create prototypes. They claim this three-wheeler, very aerodynamic, slick design is able to achieve over 1,000 miles in range. Therefore, these are the ones that you now call hyper-efficient electric cars. See, I have a problem with that though. How often, when you think about your mobile phone, do you intentionally go out and buy the smartphone that has the highest charging, or the one that loses battery the slowest, whilst compromising on design, say, or functionality? Clearly, you wouldn't do that. You'd rather compromise on charging, as long as you're getting a decent amount, for better features. Hence why people are still going with iPhones, even though clearly they have battery issues over the medium term, for example. And so that's why I don't think that the Aptera will be as mass market or as well accepted. My personal view. And then the second one that caught my eye is Arcimoto, who this week managed to successfully start a 90-day pilot with the city of Orlando, with in particular the police and the fire department. This is again a three-wheeler, but this is actually one that they're actually producing right now. So we'll have to see if this is something that really comes into our cities. Again, very bare, so makes sense that police officers and so more service-based jobs and more delivery drivers, for example, will be able to use something efficient like this. Talking about efficiency without compromising on looks, Ford's Mach-E Mustang was on the news this week. And it's a pretty big deal for Ford. It's their first proper production EV. And whilst I've got no particular problems with the looks, and actually, fun fact, it's got, to be completely aerodynamic, it's got no door handles, it's actually got a keypad that you can unlock with if you don't unlock with your phone already. What really bothers me is the fact that they use the word, the name Mustang. Clearly this was their opportunity to use a completely new name. Why not just call it Mach-E? It's like they want to change, but they want to keep the name Mustang. Decide what you want to do, Mustang. And the reason that it was on the news is because he managed to achieve 300 certified miles. Therefore, talking about what kind of range is acceptable for someone while still getting good quality car, 300 miles is pretty good. In comparison, if we look at these similar cars and a couple of SUVs and the sedan, we can see that this is actually the first non-Tesla SUV to reach 300 miles. And actually for the price, it's not too bad. So looking forward to when that hits the roads in London. And finally, the news that got me really excited this week is ROBOTAXIs being given the permission to start charging for their rides. If you think ROBOTAXIs and essentially start thinking about
robots driving around people and picking up passengers,
then you're right, because that's exactly what it is. Robotaxis are driverless cars and are quite appealing as a business model, because once you take out the driver, you take out a big operating cost, and therefore you make ride hailing, which is the likes of Uber and so on, a lot cheaper, and therefore a lot more appealing to people who don't really want to own a car. And it will be really interesting to see how this comes in, if it does come in our lifetime. This particular event happened in California, which has been known to be sort of ground zero for testing autonomous cars. And we've got the likes of Waymo and also 60 other companies who have been trying out autonomous cars there. Waymo, who's been trying it for about a decade there, are probably one of the first companies that will be able to now get this license from the state of California to essentially now start rolling out their driverless cars to pick up passengers and drop them off to where they want to be and start charging for that. They've actually been doing this with Waymo One, and for a specific group of riders known as early riders, but for safety reason had to have a driver safety person at the wheel. But from now on, they can actually do that without anyone in there. So it'd be really interesting to see what happens with that. But don't expect from sort of next week to see all of these cars popping up in California, because of course they made it very difficult to get that license. You've got to do a lot of reporting, and analysts say that it can take up to a couple of months to actually start seeing these cars operating on the roads of California. So that's all from me. If it was at all interesting to you, there's a lot more coming. Please, if you haven't done so already, like the video. It's not even going to cost you anything, and it's going to help me beat the YouTube algorithms and get my video out there. Anyways, hope to see you on the next video. That's me.